3 minutes ago, Donald Trump has gone live and unleashed a direct attack on British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and the political shockwaves are already spreading through Westminster. Within minutes of Trump's speech, UK officials were scrambling behind closed doors. Emergency meetings were called and the pound began to wobble on global markets. What started as a verbal assault may now spiral into the biggest diplomatic crisis Britain has faced in decades. This isn't just another outburst, this was a declaration, and it's already rewriting the balance of power between Washington and London. Moments ago, Donald Trump stood before cameras at a press conference in Washington and did what everyone feared he might do. He named Keir Starmer directly, accused his government of betraying America, and warned that Britain would face, in his words, serious consequences for its disloyalty. The statement hit like a thunderclap. Trump wasn't vague, he wasn't diplomatic, he was furious, and his message was crystal clear. Britain under Starmer is no longer seen as a trusted ally. Behind the scenes, senior US officials have confirmed what many suspected. This wasn't an off-the-cuff rant. It was planned. The White House had prepared talking points, press releases, and media briefings to accompany Trump's remarks. He wanted the world to see that the United States is done pretending the special relationship still exists. For decades, that phrase symbolized mutual trust, shared history, and military cooperation. Tonight, Trump shattered it, live and on purpose. Within minutes, British diplomatic channels went into panic mode. Foreign Secretary David Lammy was seen rushing into number 10, flanked by advisors and security. Insiders say Starmer's team didn't see this coming, at least not today, not like this. They believe the situation with Washington was stabilising after months of icy silence. But Trump's live remarks made it clear he hasn't forgotten and he hasn't forgiven. He accused Starmer of meddling in the 2024 American election and claimed Britain had crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. The reaction across the Atlantic was immediate. Nigel Farage took to X within seconds, posting, "Trump is right. Starmer has destroyed Britain's credibility abroad." That single post was shared over 100,000 times in less than an hour. Elon Musk joined in, amplifying Trump's message to his hundreds of millions of followers. He accused the Labour government of being anti-American, anti-freedom, and dangerously naive. The online firestorm is now turning into a political earthquake. Meanwhile, markets are reacting. The pound dipped against the dollar as traders assess the fallout. Reports from the London Stock Exchange suggest investors fear new tariffs could be announced as early as next week. Trump hinted at it himself during the press conference, saying, "We're reviewing all trade deals with countries that don't respect the United States, and some people, some governments are about to find out what that means." Everyone knew who he was talking about. Inside Westminster, chaos. Cabinet ministers are divided between those urging Starmer to apologise publicly and those warning that any sign of weakness will only embolden Trump further. According to leaks from Downing Street, some advisers believe the Prime Minister's position is now untenable, that this is the moment the dam breaks. One insider reportedly said if Trump follows through, Britain could face economic isolation. Political analysts are calling it unprecedented. No US president has ever publicly humiliated a British leader in such personal terms. Not even during the Suez Crisis or the Iraq War. And yet this isn't just humiliation, it's strategy. Trump is reshaping global alliances around loyalty and personal respect. And in his worldview, Starmer has already failed both tests. By contrast, Trump praised Farage during the same event, calling him a man who understands what real leadership looks like. That single comparison, praise for Farage, condemnation for Starmer, may alter Britain's political landscape overnight. Reform UK is already surging in the polls. And after tonight, Farage is being seen not just as an opposition figure, but as Trump's chosen partner in Britain. For Labour, the optics are catastrophic. The leader of the free world is openly backing their biggest rival. Diplomatic sources say the Foreign Office has been ordered to reach out to Washington by any channel possible, but so far, no response. Trump's team isn't taking calls. Instead, they're briefing American media that the United Kingdom will need to earn back America's trust. Words Britain hasn't heard from Washington in a century. Right now, every major power is watching this unfold. Europe, China, Russia. The question they're all asking is the same. If Britain can lose its most important ally this quickly, what does that say? Overnight, the crisis deepened. Reports from Washington suggest that Trump's inner circle is drafting a series of executive actions targeting British trade, intelligence cooperation, and even defence agreements. According to sources close to the White House, the new measures are being described internally as a calibration of loyalty. That's Trump's coded language for economic punishment. The proposal includes a 25% tariff on British steel and automotive exports, tighter restrictions on defence contracts, and a review of intelligence sharing under the Five Eyes alliance. In other words, the very foundations of Britain's strategic partnership with the United States are being shaken. Not quietly, but in full view of the world. Trump's live attack was just the opening move. The real pressure is only now beginning. Back in London, Starmer is trapped in a tightening vice. The British press has turned feral, with headlines screaming, "Trump declares Britain disloyal. Special relationship in freefall." Inside Number 10, senior officials are clashing over how to respond. Some advisors are urging Starmer to issue a public statement acknowledging mistakes, appealing directly to put Trump's ego in an attempt at personal reconciliation. Others argue that any apology would make Britain look weak and confirm Trump's dominance over British politics. The paralysis is total. Every hour that passes without a response makes the government look more desperate, more isolated, and more powerless to shape events spiralling beyond its control. The opposition senses blood in the water. Nigel Farage has gone on a media blitz, appearing on American television networks and positioning himself as the bridge between the UK and Trump's America. His message is simple and devastating. Starmer has broken the alliance and only a change in leadership can fix it. Trump himself has reinforced that narrative, reposting clips of Farage's interviews with the caption, "A real friend of America." The symbolism is impossible to miss. In Trump's world, Farage is the true representative of Britain, and Starmer is a man to be ignored. Political commentators across both countries are describing this as a diplomatic coup orchestrated live in real time by Trump and his allies. Meanwhile, the economic consequences are starting to materialise. Analysts at major investment banks are warning clients to prepare for turbulence. The pound continues to slide, and energy markets are already pricing in potential retaliatory tariffs. Businesses that depend on American contracts, aerospace firms, car manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies are bracing for impact. Executives are calling Downing Street, demanding reassurance, but Starmer can't offer any. His calls to Washington still go unanswered. American officials have reportedly been instructed not to engage with British diplomats until further notice. Britain, once Washington's closest partner, is being ghosted on the global stage. The mood inside the Labour Party is turning poisonous. Leaks from internal meetings describe scenes of open shouting between ministers. Some are calling for emergency talks with the opposition to present a unified national response. Others want Starmer to resign immediately to prevent total collapse. The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of our most powerful ally, one senior Labour MP told reporters off record. He may soon lose the confidence of his own party. The fear is that Trump's words could trigger a chain reaction, economic pain, political fragmentation, and a total loss of international credibility. Once that spiral begins, there may be no easy way out. Across Europe, allies are watching nervously but keeping their distance. Privately, EU leaders admit they can't afford to antagonise Trump either. France and Germany are quietly opening channels to Washington, trying to ensure their own relationships survive the new geopolitical reality. The message is clear: Britain is on its own. Even Canada and Australia waving signs that read, "Rebuild the special relationship" and "Starmer must go." The chants echo into the night as police form barriers around government buildings. The atmosphere in London feels less like a stable democracy and more like a government on the brink. Inside the corridors of power, one chilling question dominates every conversation. How far will Trump go? Some fear he could order the withdrawal of key intelligence cooperation, leaving Britain blind on counter-terror operations. Others worry about financial sanctions or restrictions on US tech investment that could cripple entire industries. Every scenario ends the same way. Britain weaker, isolated, and forced to rebuild from the ruins of a relationship it once took for granted. As dawn approaches, the message from Washington remains unchanged. No phone calls, no meetings, no negotiation. Trump has made his position clear. Britain will face punishment until it shows proper respect. The world is watching as an alliance built over 8 decades unravels in real time. The question now is not whether this is a diplomatic crisis, it's whether Britain can survive. As Britain wakes to headlines declaring the end of the special relationship, the nation finds itself standing at a crossroads it never expected to face. For decades, London's foreign policy has relied on the stability, strength and solidarity of its partnership with Washington. Now, that foundation has been shattered overnight. The consequences are not just diplomatic. They're deeply personal for millions of Britons whose livelihoods depend on trade, defence and investment ties with the United States. In Downing Street, sleepless aides move between crisis meetings, drafting statement after statement. Each one rejected for being either too weak or too confrontational. Every word is being weighed for how it will land, not in Westminster, but in Washington, in the mind of one man who now holds Britain's fate in his hands. The tension inside number 10 is suffocating. Officials describe the Prime Minister as pale, exhausted and increasingly isolated, surrounded by advisers who can't agree on a single path forward. Meanwhile, the opposition senses opportunity. Nigel Farage has called for an emergency session of Parliament, demanding Starmer appear before the House to explain how he managed to destroy 75 years of friendship in 75 minutes. His motion has gained traction across party lines, with several Conservative and even a few Labour MPs signalling support. The prospect of a no-confidence vote is now very real. On social media, the divide has become a national fault line. Hashtags like #respect or pay and #Starmer failed. Britain dominate trending lists. Millions of users are sharing old clips of Trump praising Farage and warning Europe not to take America for granted. The digital echo chamber has turned the diplomatic rift into a full-scale populist movement. One that paints Starmer as weak, arrogant and out of touch with Britain's allies. In Washington, the atmosphere is just as charged. Senior figures in Trump's circle are framing the standoff as a test of loyalty, a defining moment for America's allies. Britain chose globalism over friendship, one advisor told reporters. Now it's time to pay the price. Across cable networks, commentators are debating whether the United Kingdom can even recover from such public humiliation. Some call it a wake-up call. Others describe it as the beginning of a new Cold War. Not between East and West, but between loyalty and independence. Back in London, the financial situation is worsening. Overnight, the pound has fallen to its lowest level in nearly 20 years. Energy companies are warning of price hikes. Multinational firms are reconsidering British investments. What began as a war of words is now an economic storm. Every trader, banker and investor knows that when Trump speaks, markets listen. And this time, they're listening in fear. Even Britain's allies seem hesitant to intervene. European leaders are offering cautious statements of support for dialogue, but none are willing to challenge Washington directly. NATO officials have declined to comment, wary of inflaming tensions within the alliance. In private, diplomats admit what few will say publicly, that Britain is facing the greatest test of its global standing since World War II. As the day wears on, Starmer finally emerges to face the press. Cameras flash, microphones crowd forward. His tone is measured, but his face tells another story. The United Kingdom remains a steadfast ally of the United States, he says, reading carefully from his notes. We value our shared history and our cooperation and our mutual respect. We will continue to engage through diplomatic channels to resolve any misunderstanding. But the words sound hollow, too polished, too rehearsed. And within minutes, the statement is being mocked online. One viral post reads simply, "He blinked first." In Washington, Trump responds almost instantly. He reposts Starmer's clip with a single line, "Too late." The message sends a chill through Westminster. For every cautious diplomat urging patience, there are now 10 voices inside Parliament demanding action. Some calling for a reset, others for Starmer's resignation. His authority is collapsing in real time. And by nightfall, the crisis has taken on a life of its own. British tabloids run front-page headlines reading Starmer versus Trump, the breakup of the century, and Downing Street in meltdown. Crowds outside Parliament grow louder, angrier, more volatile. Police line the streets as chants echo through Westminster. We want answers! We want allies. Inside number 10, the Prime Minister sits alone, staring at a blank briefing paper marked US Relations, Emergency Response. Around him, phones ring unanswered, aides whisper, and the clock ticks relentlessly toward midnight. The truth is inescapable. The United Kingdom is no longer at the centre of the Western alliance. It is standing on the edge of an uncertain future, one tweet away from total isolation. And as dawn approaches once again, one question continues to haunt the corridors of power, echoing louder than ever before. Is this how the special relationship ends? Not with a handshake, but with a hashtag. By morning, Westminster was no longer in control. The crisis had grown too large, too fast, and was now being dictated not by policy or diplomacy, but by perception. Every headline, every post, every soundbite from Washington was shaping Britain's fate minute by minute. What had begun as a transatlantic dispute had become a full-blown reckoning for Keir Starmer's leadership and the British establishment itself. At 7 a.m, the nation stopped to watch as the Prime Minister made his way into the House of Commons for an emergency session. Outside, thousands of protesters lined the streets, waving both Union Jacks and American flags. Some chanting in support of Trump, others demanding Starmer's resignation. The air was thick with tension, the kind usually reserved for wartime debates. Inside the chamber, the atmosphere was electric. MPs shouted over one another as Starmer took his seat. The Speaker called for order, in vain. When he finally rose to speak, his opening words were drowned out by jeers from the opposition benches. "Order!" echoed again through the hall, but it barely mattered. The moment had already slipped beyond his control. Starmer began, "Britain's relationship with the United States is built on more than one man or one administration. It is built on history, on sacrifice, and on shared values." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the pressure. "This government will not be intimidated by any foreign power, nor will we abandon our principles to appease the politics of personality." Across the chamber, Nigel Farage stood up slowly, a half smile crossing his face. "With respect, Prime Minister," he shouted, "the British people don't see principles, they see failure. You've turned our greatest ally into our greatest critic. The world doesn't respect Britain under your leadership. It pities it." The room erupted in applause and shouting. Cameras zoomed in as Starmer lowered his gaze, visibly shaken. Moments later, the opposition leader tabled a motion of no confidence, an act that sent shockwaves through the chamber. By midday, rumours swirled that several senior Labour MPs were preparing to abstain or even vote against their own government. One political analyst on Sky News described it as a once-in-a-generation political implosion unfolding live on television. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Trump seized the moment. Standing before reporters on the White House lawn, he declared, "Britain used to be a great friend. Maybe one day it will be again. But not under that guy." The clip went viral within minutes. In Britain, it played on every screen, every network, every phone. The contrast couldn't have been starker. A confident Trump in control of the narrative and a British Prime Minister fighting to save his job. By late afternoon, the markets delivered their verdict. The pound hit a 30-year low. Energy giants announced price surges. Major automakers signalled they were freezing new UK investments, pending clarity on US trade policy. The economic pain was no longer theoretical. It had arrived. Inside number 10, chaos reigned. Advisors argued over whether to reach out directly to Trump through back channels, bypassing the State Department entirely. Others warned that such a move would only worsen the humiliation. The Prime Minister, exhausted and cornered, sat silently through another late-night briefing. "If we can't stabilise this by morning," one aide whispered, "we may not have a government left to save."